The Zalorian Empire had ruled the galaxy for centuries. Their fleets stretched across countless stars, and their banners flew on every conquered world. To them, control of space was absolute. No unknown vessel entered their borders without being catalogued, classified, or destroyed. That was how it had always been. That was how the Empire kept its grip on the galaxy. On the edge of their territory, far from the shining core worlds, an early warning station floated in the void. Its job was simple: scan the darkness, detect any approach, and report everything. Day after day, year after year, it repeated this task without fail. Nothing unusual ever appeared. Until now. The first alert came as a faint flicker, a signal too small to be a fleet, too steady to be a natural phenomenon. The computers tried to match it against known records: merchant ships, smugglers, pirates, or enemy craft. But every search ended the same: no known design. The duty officer leaned forward, his eyes narrowing. His name was Varric, a commander who had served faithfully for decades. He had seen false alarms before. He had seen strange signals turn out to be drifting rocks or faulty sensors. But this felt different. The pattern was too deliberate, too clean. Something or someone was out there. He ordered a deeper scan. Beams of detection energy swept the void, but the result made his blood run cold. The object shifted, not forward, not away, sideways, as if sliding out of the scanner's reach. The system reported nothing detected. Yet Varric could feel it. The ship was there, hiding, watching, recalibrate. Search again, he ordered. His crew obeyed, their hands trembling slightly. The screens flickered once more. The anomaly appeared again, just for a breath of a moment. Its shape was strange, jagged angles, shadows folding into themselves. It looked less like a ship and more like a dark wound in the stars. One officer gasped. "That's no known ship. And it moves like a shadow." The words seemed to hang in the cold air of the control room. Varric felt unease creep into his bones. The Empire's archives held millions of ship designs, everything from ancient war relics to modern battlecruisers. But nothing looked like this. Nothing moved like this. Ships did not simply vanish from scanners. They did not dance around beams of detection as if space itself obeyed them. He tapped the comms. "Send this to High Command. Priority Alpha. Unknown vessel detected." The message shot through space toward the Empire's heart. The warning was clear. Something unknown had entered their domain. While they waited for confirmation, the anomaly moved again. This time closer. For a heartbeat, it loomed larger on their displays, its angles warping as if refusing to be properly seen. Then it disappeared once more, leaving behind only silence. Fear spread quietly among the crew. They were trained soldiers, servants of the greatest empire in the galaxy. But deep down, each one of them knew they had just witnessed something far beyond their understanding. Varric clenched his fists. He had faced raiders, pirates, and rival fleets. He had never feared them, but this filled him with dread. Far away in the Imperial Palace, the first report arrived. Advisors read in disbelief, then hurried to the Emperor himself. Few words were spoken, but they carried weight heavier than any weapon. "An unknown ship," the advisor whispered. "It slips from our scanners. It moves like a shadow." The Emperor's gaze darkened. For centuries, the Zalorian Empire had believed nothing new could threaten them. But as he listened, he felt the first tremor of doubt. Something had entered his galaxy, something not bound by their rules. And in that moment, the Empire, so proud, so unshakable, was placed on alert. The Zalorian High Command wasted no time. Once the warning reached the capital, fleets were mobilized. No unknown ship could be allowed to wander through their space. The Empire's strength had always rested on fear that no outsider could challenge their rule. Now something moved in their territory without permission, and that alone was an insult the Emperor could not tolerate. A patrol fleet of 12 warships was dispatched. They were fast, heavily armed, and commanded by Admiral Syraxis, a veteran who had fought 100 battles. He was a proud man, confident in the might of his ships and the loyalty of his crew. To him, this was routine. "Whatever this anomaly is," he declared, standing tall on his flagship's bridge, "we will reveal it. If it is a smuggler, we will capture it. If it is an enemy, we will destroy it." His officers saluted. The fleet spread into formation, surrounding the coordinates where the strange signals had last been reported. Shields flared to life. Cannons hummed with power. Everything was ready. At first, the void seemed empty. No ship, no trace, no sound but the hum of their own engines. Some officers began to doubt. Perhaps the early warning station had panicked. Perhaps it was only an error in their sensors. Then it appeared. One moment the stars were clear, the next they were not. A shape flickered into existence, dark, jagged, bending the starlight itself. The black ship hovered at the edge of their formation, silent and unmoving like a shadow given form. A hush fell across the bridge. "By the stars," one officer whispered. "It's real." Admiral Syraxis straightened his shoulders. "Open a channel. Demand identification." A signal was sent. No response. Again. This time on all frequencies. Still the shadow ship remained silent. Its angles seemed to shift as if it resisted being truly seen. The Admiral's jaw tightened. They dared to ignore us? "Fire warning shots. Show them who controls this space." Obediently, the fleet unleashed streaks of brilliant energy. Beams of light cut across the void, aimed not at the ship itself but at its path. The shots should have forced it to move, to reveal its engines, to show its nature. But what happened next froze the entire fleet in disbelief. The black ship moved. Not quickly, not with brute speed, but with impossible grace. It flowed between the beams, slipping aside as if space itself bent around it. The warning shots passed harmlessly by, touching nothing but empty void. On the bridge, silence stretched. For the first time in his career, Admiral Syraxis had no immediate command to give. He simply stared, his heart thudding in his chest. Ships did not move like that. Nothing the Empire had ever built, nothing its enemies had ever fielded could twist and slide through attack so effortlessly. It was not evasion. It was not luck. It was as if the black ship already knew where every beam would go. "Target it," the Admiral barked, anger covering his unease. "Lock all weapons." His officers tried, but the targeting system struggled. The ship's outline blurred, its coordinates shifting faster than the computers could process. It's not holding still," an officer stammered. "Every time we lock, it's already gone." Syraxis's anger burned hotter, but beneath it lay fear. The Empire's fleets prided themselves on dominance, on technology that could crush any foe. Yet here, before his eyes, was a vessel that ignored their might as if it were nothing. The black ship did not fire. It did not speak. It only lingered, watching, studying them. And in that silence, the fleet understood a terrible truth. They were not the hunters tonight. They were the prey. For long minutes, the fleet and the shadow ship stared at one another across the silent void. 12 warships against one. Dozens of guns humming with power. Thousands of trained crew ready for orders. And yet no one dared to act. The air on every bridge felt heavy, as if the crew themselves were holding their breath. Admiral Syraxis clenched his fists. The more he watched, the more his pride burned. He could not allow this strange vessel to humiliate him. His voice cracked like a whip. "Enough of this. Fire to disable. Bring it down!" In an instant, the fleet came alive. Cannons blazed, launching bolts of burning light across the darkness. Missiles streaked forward, engines roaring as they sought their target. The sky lit with deadly brilliance, but the black ship was faster. It did not flee. It did not charge. It simply flickered, shifting its position as though sliding through invisible cracks in reality. The weapons that should have torn it apart missed by wide gaps. Missiles curved helplessly away, as if their guidance systems were fooled by illusions. On every bridge, officers cried out in disbelief. "It's impossible. No ship can move like that. Our locks are failing." Then the shadow ship struck. It did not unleash firestorms or explosions. No devastating beams or waves of destruction. Instead, thin threads of light erupted from its hull, sharp, precise, surgical. Each one lanced across the void with perfect aim. One by one, every warship's engines died. Alarms screamed. Power levels plummeted. Control systems went dark. The mighty vessels of the Empire, feared across the galaxy, were left drifting, helpless husks in the silence of space. Admiral Syraxis stumbled against his command chair, his face pale. "Report, what just happened?" The crew scrambled, but their voices trembled. "Engines disabled. Weapons offline. Life support intact, but everything else is gone." Syraxis gritted his teeth, his fleet, his pride undone in seconds. And yet no one was dead. The shadow ship had not destroyed them. It had chosen mercy. The silence was unbearable. Then across every channel a voice spoke. It was calm, deep, human. "We are not your enemy, unless you make us one." Every officer froze. Their translators confirmed the language. Ancient Terran. Human speech. The admiral's heart thudded in his chest. He had read the old records. He had studied the history of the so-called humans, a primitive species that had once lived on a single fragile world. According to the archives, they had perished long ago, victims of their own wars and weakness, and yet, here was a ship, a human ship, powerful enough to cripple an entire fleet without killing a soul. Syraxis's voice shook as he spoke, his pride finally cracking. "Who are you?" There was a pause, long enough to make the question echo in their minds. Then the answer came, "We are humanity. You thought us broken. You thought us gone. But we endured. We rebuilt, and now, we walk the stars unseen." A chill ran through every heart. Humanity. The lost race. The forgotten ones. Not only alive, but stronger than any Empire ship could imagine. The shadow ship did not boast. It did not threaten. It only lingered silent and still, as if waiting, watching to see what choice the Empire would make. On the flagship, Admiral Syraxis lowered his eyes. He had never felt so powerless. His fleet, once the hammer of the Empire, was nothing but drifting metal. The truth was undeniable. Humanity had returned, and they had returned as something far greater than legend. In the silence that followed, every soldier, every officer, and every leader across the Empire felt the same cold realization. The hunters of the galaxy had just met a predator they could not cage. The Empire had many secrets hidden in its vast archives. Records of extinct races, memories of old wars, files kept more as trophies than as knowledge. Among them lay the story of Earth and its people. The humans, long ago they had been dismissed as weak. Their world, torn apart by war, had fallen silent. Scouts had found only ruins, ashes, and broken cities. The Empire had written their story as finished, extinct, forgotten, but now, everything had changed. On the drifting flagship, Admiral Syraxis could hardly believe what he had heard. A single voice, steady and calm, had declared the impossible truth. Humanity was alive. Humanity had returned. And their technology, whatever powered that shadow ship, was far beyond the Empire's reach. The Admiral's officers whispered in fear. It can't be. They were gone. They had to be gone. Then what is this? What are we facing?
The archives were wrong. Syraxis gripped the edge of his chair.
He wanted to deny it, to call it lies. But deep in his heart he knew. No one else spoke with such defiance. No one else carried such quiet strength. Only humans could take despair and turn it into survival. He forced himself to speak. "What do you want from us?" For a long time there was silence. The black ship hovered, its dark hull shifting like liquid shadow. Then the voice returned. "We want nothing but respect. We are not here to conquer. We are not here to destroy. But we will not kneel again. Never again." Those words struck harder than any weapon. They carried pain, loss, and strength. A people once broken, now unyielding. The crew on Syraxis's ship exchanged glances. Even the bravest officers felt the weight of those words pressing into their souls. These were not enemies like the Empire had faced before. This was something new, something dangerous, not because it sought war, but because it had already proven it could fight one and win. Across the Empire, High Command scrambled to react. Reports of the encounter spread like wildfire. Advisors argued in the Emperor's chamber. Humans cannot be allowed to rise. Crush them now before they grow stronger. You do not understand. If one ship can disable a fleet, how many more could there be? They were supposed to be extinct. How did they survive? Who gave them this power? The Emperor sat in silence, his eyes shadowed with thought. For centuries he had ruled with certainty. His fleets were unstoppable. His enemies were dust. But the words of that human voice gnawed at him. We endured. We rebuilt. And now we walk the stars unseen. The Emperor clenched his hand into a fist. Humanity was not supposed to exist. And yet here they were, standing tall in the shadows beyond his reach. Meanwhile, the shadow ship lingered near the powerless fleet. It made no further move, no final strike. Instead, it simply waited, as though giving them time to understand the message. It was not conquest. It was not submission. It was a warning. Humanity had returned, and they demanded to be seen. Admiral Syraxis stared at the strange vessel, a knot of emotions twisting in his chest. Fear, anger, but also something else. Respect. He had spent his life crushing rebellions, hunting enemies of the Empire, proving his dominance. Yet in this moment he realized he stood before a race that refused to be erased, a people who had risen from extinction itself. He whispered almost to himself, "They should not have survived." But they did. The shadow ship shimmered once more, and then in an instant it was gone, vanishing back into the darkness, leaving only silence and drifting warships behind. But silence did not mean peace. Silence was only the beginning. The Empire now knew the truth. Humanity was alive. Humanity was powerful. Humanity had returned. And from this day forward, nothing in the galaxy would ever be the same again. The return of humanity spread across the Empire like wildfire. The report from Admiral Syraxis reached the capital, and soon every council chamber, every fleet command, and every governor's palace whispered of the same thing. A ship that moved like a shadow, a voice that spoke in ancient Terran tongue, and an entire fleet humbled without a single casualty. For the first time in centuries, the Empire felt fear. The Emperor summoned his highest advisors into the Grand Hall. The room glittered with wealth, golden walls, crystal light, and marble floors polished to perfection. But beneath the surface beauty, tension cracked like thunder. The Minister of War slammed his fist on the table. "This cannot stand. One ship humiliates 12 of our best and we simply watch? We must strike now. Burn whatever remains of these humans before they become a greater threat." Others argued fiercely. The Minister of Intelligence shook his head. "And what if there are more? What if that ship was not alone? Think, man. If one vessel can disable a fleet, what will happen when an entire armada of theirs appears?" Voices clashed like blades. Fear twisted into anger and anger into panic. Each advisor tried to sound strong, but their eyes betrayed the truth. They were afraid of the humans. At the head of the table, the Emperor sat silent. His face was calm, but his mind raced. For centuries, his empire had stood tall as the galaxy's master. Now a ghost from the past threatened to unseat them. Humanity, a race once considered weak, now holding the power to move unseen and strike at will. Finally, the Emperor spoke. His voice was soft, yet it carried across the chamber like thunder. "We dismissed them once. That was our mistake. We cannot dismiss them again." The room fell into silence. Meanwhile, far from the glittering palace, the people of the Empire whispered in fear. Soldiers told stories of the shadow ship that danced between beams of fire. Merchants swore that the humans could appear anywhere, unseen until they chose to strike. Civilians looked to the stars with unease, wondering if humanity was watching from the dark. Fear spread faster than fire. On military bases, commanders pushed their troops harder, but the soldiers' confidence had cracked. In the minds of ordinary people, the Empire was no longer untouchable. If one human ship could humiliate the Empire's fleets, then perhaps the Empire was not as strong as it claimed. Admiral Syraxis, still humiliated from the encounter, stood before the council. His voice carried both shame and warning. "They disabled us without killing. That was no act of mercy, it was a message. They wanted us to know they could destroy us if they wished. Do not mistake restraint for weakness. Humanity has power we do not understand." His words made the chamber shiver. The proud generals lowered their eyes. None could deny what had happened. The Emperor rose from his throne, his cloak flowing behind him. "We are not dealing with rebels or pirates. We face survivors, a race that defied extinction itself. That makes them dangerous." But even as he spoke, a question gnawed at him, one he could not ask aloud. If they survived when they were supposed to perish, what else have they achieved in the shadows? The meeting ended, but unease lingered. The Empire, once confident in its supremacy, now carried doubt like a wound that would not heal. Outside the palace, the stars stretched endless and dark. Somewhere out there, humanity waited, silent, watching. The Empire's fleet still numbered in the thousands, their armies still vast, their borders still wide. But none of that mattered now. For the first time, the Empire lived with the awareness that its greatest enemy was not one it could see. It was one that moved like a shadow, and deep in every heart. From soldier to emperor, the same thought whispered like a curse. If one ship could do this, how many more are there? The shadow ship appeared again. This time it was not in hiding, not at the edge of the Empire's borders. It hovered above a major capital world, a world that had once believed itself untouchable. Cities glittered beneath its dark hull. Millions of lives went about their day. unaware that the Empire's arrogance had been challenged, and yet no one panicked at first. The ship did not fire. It did not attack. It simply waited like a predator observing its prey. But then the people noticed. Sensors flickered. Communications were interrupted. The capital's defenses struggled to track the vessel, their most advanced targeting systems failing again, as if the ship existed partly outside reality itself. Panic rippled through the population. From the central palace, the Emperor watched the dark shape loom above the city. He had seen the reports, he had heard the warnings, and yet seeing it in person made him feel smaller than he had ever felt. All the power of the Zalorian Empire, all its armies, fleets, and technology, seemed meaningless under the silent gaze of that one ship. A voice suddenly filled every channel, every public network, every home and military station. Deep, calm, human, Terran, we are humanity. Long ago you cast us aside, thinking us weak. You thought we were gone. But we endured. We rebuilt. And now we walk the stars unseen. We do not seek war. We do not seek conquest. We do not come as your servants. But we will not kneel again. Never again. Know this. If you bring war to us, it will be the last war you ever fight. The words struck the Empire like a physical blow. Soldiers froze, civilians cried, advisors stuttered in fear. Every eye turned toward the sky. Every mind raced to comprehend what had returned. Even the Emperor's composure faltered. He had never been afraid, not of rebellion, not of enemy fleets, not of betrayal. But he could not deny the truth in that voice. Humanity had returned, and they were no longer the powerless species recorded in dusty archives. They had grown. They had learned. They had become something far beyond expectation. Across the planet, alarms blared. Ships scrambled, but targeting systems failed. Missiles and lasers could not touch the human vessel. It moved like a shadow, untouchable, untethered. It did not fire. It did not demand. It simply made the Empire feel small, powerless, and watched. Admiral Syraxis stood on the flagship once more, the memory of the first encounter burning fresh in his mind. His fleet was still rebuilding from that encounter. Now, seeing this warning over the capital, he realized the humans had a message not just for the military, but for the entire Empire. We exist. You cannot ignore us. You cannot control us. The Emperor finally spoke, voice low but firm. They do not wish to destroy us. Yet, but they will not be ignored. Prepare defenses, double patrols, and find them. Know everything we can. Humanity cannot remain a mystery for long. But even as the order left his lips, he knew it would be nearly impossible. Humanity did not follow the known rules of war. They did not rely on fleets the Empire could track, nor technology the Empire could understand. They were ghosts, shadows in the dark, waiting for the right moment to reveal their full strength. Below, the citizens of the world looked to the sky, hearts pounding with awe and fear. Some whispered that the humans were gods. Others whispered that the Empire had lost its immortality. And deep in every mind, a single thought repeated: the humans had returned, and the Zalorian Empire, once untouchable, now lived on the edge of a new reality, a reality in which shadows could strike with the power of legends, and the past refused to stay buried. The shadow ship shimmered once more, then moved silently into the darkness of space, leaving a world trembling beneath it. Its warning had been given. Its presence was a message the Empire could not forget. From this day on, no one would look at the stars the same way. Humanity had returned, and they had already marked the Empire. The galaxy was quiet, but the calm was tense. Every fleet, every palace, every world of the Zalorian Empire waited, wondering where the shadow ship might strike next. For centuries, the Empire had been unchallenged. Its fleets were unmatched, its borders secure, and its enemies crushed before they could rise. Now one human vessel had changed everything. On the flagship of Admiral Syraxis, the bridge was silent. His officers still stared at the stars where the human ship had vanished. Their sensors could detect nothing, yet they all knew it had been there. It had shown them a power that defied their understanding, a power that reminded them of something long forgotten, that the galaxy could not be ruled by fear alone. The Emperor sat in his throne room, staring at the empty sky through the palace's giant windows. The words of the human voice echoed in his mind. We do not seek war, but we will not kneel again. He had built an empire on control and certainty. Yet now, for the first time, He felt uncertainty bite at the edges of his mind. The humans had returned, not to beg for mercy, not to grovel, but to declare their existence, to declare that even the mighty Zalorian Empire was not untouchable. Across the Empire, whispers spread. Soldiers spoke in hushed tones about the shadow ship that moved like a ghost. Civilians told stories of the alien yet human vessel that had hovered above their cities without a sound. The legend grew instantly, more powerful than any propaganda the Empire had ever created. Humanity was no longer a forgotten footnote in history. They were alive. They were powerful. And they were watching. Admiral Syraxis finally spoke, his voice low but heavy with the weight of experience. "We cannot fight what we cannot understand. One ship, one human, has humbled 12 of our greatest warships. We have underestimated them for too long. The mistake will not be forgiven." But even as he spoke, a spark of admiration flickered within him. Humanity had endured centuries of hardship, countless wars and near extinction. And yet they returned not broken but stronger, cleverer and more precise than any Empire mind could predict. The shadow ship had struck without killing, without violence, but with a message so clear it could not be ignored. In the dark void of space, the human vessel moved silently, almost unseen. Its mission was not conquest, not destruction, not chaos. It was a reminder, a warning, and for the first time the Empire felt the weight of that reminder settle on every planet, every fleet, every mind that had ever believed itself untouchable. The Emperor leaned back in his throne, silent. He understood something deep and undeniable. The galaxy had changed. The humans had returned. And their return was not a plea nor a threat. It was a statement. They existed. They survived. They endured. Outside, the stars seemed darker somehow. Shadows stretched between the worlds, carrying with them the memory of the ship that had come like nightfall. A single vessel had rewritten the rules of power, showing the Empire that might alone could not guarantee control. And then, as silently as it had arrived, the shadow ship vanished. No flash, no explosion, no trace. Only the echoes remained in the minds of every Zalorian who had seen or heard it. The fleets would rebuild. The Emperor would command, the advisors would debate, and the soldiers would prepare. But one thing would remain etched into the heart of the Empire forever. Humanity had returned. Not as prey, not as servants, not as a forgotten species. They had returned as a force to be reckoned with. As the galaxy held its breath, one truth became undeniable. The Zalorian Empire would never see the stars the same way again. One human ship had moved like a shadow, and in doing so, it had changed the course of history. And from that day forward, the Empire remained on alert, because they knew, deep in every corner of their empire, that humanity was back and they would not be ignored.